My dudes, what's up? We got the ERZBERG Iron Giant Enduro. Sit back and have yourself a beverage, dog. This video is going to take a while because the lap times are literally like 30 seconds long. So yeah, this is made by a dude named Endometriosis on the forums. And I just want to tell you right now, dog, absolutely incredible job here. Incredible track. I mean, this was so needed in MX Simulator. I felt like a true, full-blown, ERZBERG Enduro, full track, long lap time. I mean, it was needed so bad because it seems like the Enduro and trail side of MX Simulator is such a neglected side of the game, and I've really tried to push that with a lot of my custom tracks. You guys know my morning trail, evening trail, night trail, rainforest trail. I've got a lot of different trail tracks, and I've really tried to push with the whole like making tree billboards, but making them collidable where you can really bounce off the trees and having all the trees really close to you on the track. And I've done so much to try to inject a little bit of life into the enduro scene on MX Simulator because it's got so much potential, and I feel like it's just not really gotten the attention and the love that it needs to really push it to that next level. Like, there's probably a lot of people that play MX Simulator that don't even really realize that there's enduro trail tracks on it, right? There's probably a lot of people out there like that. So to see someone come in here and make this and spend the time to do it and really dedicate and try to make it as good as they could, it means the world to a guy like me because I love this game and I try to support it, and just for the longevity. And this is going to be one of those tracks that's remembered forever, and that's a really cool thing that you'll always kind of have in your back pocket there, man. Endometriosis. It's kind of funny how he's got his name spelled on the forums there, but yeah, dude. So either way, I just want to say just for your thought and wanting to come in here and make this, I mean, hats off to you in every way for doing that. And I know there was kind of a track made a little bit sort of kind of like this. I think it might have been like a year or two ago, but it was not built, in my opinion, very good at all. Didn't really even do it too much justice in a lot of ways. So, but this definitely does right here. Now, just warning you guys, okay, this is my first time ever actually riding on the entire track. So if you see me, coming down a downhill wide-ass open, it's because I didn't even realize what was there, right? There's a lot of places on this track I'm like coming over a jump, like a double, and I don't even realize that it's a double and stuff like that, and I pop off the bike. So just warning you, we're going to have a couple wrecks here, a couple little weird, MX Simulator pop-off moments, and, barely tip it over, and it clips my head and pops me off the bike. Come on now, JLV. We got to fix some of that shit. MX Simulator becomes a very bizarre, janky, weird experience when you start going slow in the game. And a lot of guys that have played this game for a while will know all that. But it really does, man. MX Simulator is a very weird game when you get in that, like, creeping, very slow, backing up, slow going up a hill, and going over any sort of object statue in the game. This is something that I really wanted to get in here and explain on MX Simulator. There's some very, very weird, janky feelings with the objects on MX Sim, man. Kind of hard to explain if you don't really know the game, but I mean, you'll realize this anytime, like, you get a bridge section on one of the AMA RF Supercross tracks. Try to go over one of those puppies really slow. Like, try to get on the top of the bridge and just completely slow down and gas it. It's literally going to shoot your bike in the most random, slick, weird, slick, but still have traction direction. I don't know how to explain it. There's a really weird, like, collision when your tires hit any sort of statue object, whether it's a rock or a log or a bridge or whatever it is in the game, that it's got a very outdated feeling to it, like a really janky, doesn't even really feel like you're meant to actually ride over objects in this game. That's actually what it feels like. So it's got a very bizarre feeling in that type of sense. So, but not only that, I think there's an issue where there's just not enough objects in the game made, right? Like all these rocks you're seeing right here and all the logs, these are the same rocks and logs pretty much everybody uses on their enduro tracks because there's only like a handful of enduro objects in the game that you can really use properly. So I really think some of you model creators need to get in there and start making more stuff on that to really help the game, because I mean, you see this small rock right here. He's got two different rocks on this track, right? He's got like a huge boulder that you can't even ride over hardly, and then he's got a lot of those smaller rocks on it, right? But even these small rocks are literal boulder size whenever you compare it to like real life rock gardens and real life rocks. Like, there's not a small enough rock object, I feel like, in MX Simulator to where you can accurately create that, like, small rock where you're bouncing off of it, but it's not so big that it's like gonna flip you over. So I feel like this guy with this track, it's like he tried to make it as good as he could with the objects that he had to work with on MX Sim, but in the same token, it doesn't create that feeling of like riding over, like golf ball size rocks, in true rock gardens like that. It really doesn't create that unless you make tons of these rocks really, really close together to where you never like go down to the terrain, because like I said before, it's a really weird experience when you go from the terrain, when your tires go from terrain to, there's one of those good old moments where you barely slide over and pop off the bike just because your elbow grazed the freaking ground. You gotta love it, dog. But, it's specifically when your tires go from terrain to any sort of object, it's like a totally different traction, right? It's like every object in this game has a literal full-blown, like you just sprayed some water and put some lube on that shit, a little KY jelly on these rocks, dog. Like, you're instantly going to slide. There's no question. There's slick. Every object in this game has a very slick feeling to it. Like, there's absolutely zero traction on it. Slickness to the point of where it feels janky. You know what I'm saying? But that's what I'm trying to get at. It's going to give you a little bit of a weird experience going through this track right here. You're going to get the feeling of don't ever even try to hit these rocks. That's really the feeling it's going to give you of like, do everything you can to not even hit a rock versus like, let me gas it over these rocks. You get what I'm saying? Whereas like in real life enduro, the rocks are small enough to where on most rock gardens and most little rock areas, right, if you're just kind of riding through the dirt or the grass or whatever, and you got little rocks in it, a lot of times it's not this size of rocks, right? These are more like you put a bunch of random boulder-sized rocks throughout a trail, and you're just going to try to do everything you can to avoid them, because all it's going to do is damn near flip over your bike if you're going fast at all. So, like I'm saying, when it comes to going slow on MX Simulator and going over objects, it's not what you think it might be, right? I still think this game could use massive improvements from JLV in that category. Object, like collision, there's a lot of objects in this game and I think specifically the huge boulder that he's got on this track, specifically that rock object, a lot of times you'll be riding beside it and you won't even actually be hitting it on your screen, but it's like the statue object collision field comes out further than where that actual rock model is. So you'll collide with it even though you're not even actually touching it. And that'll happen with some of the tough blocks in the game as well. Whew, JLV, you have got to fix this jump a 5-foot double and pop off the bike like you just jumped a 7,000-foot triple, and came up short. You know what I mean? You've got to fix that. There is still some big issues with that with MX Simulator. Ever since he put in the high speed, low speed rebound and compression in the game, that's when I noticed it. And he did go in there and update it and made it to where it didn't do it quite as bad as it did at the beginning, but that whole MX Simulator pop-off, jumping off of a 2-foot tall jump, if both of your tires hit at the same time on a flat surface, you're fucked. Period. It don't matter if it's a 5-foot tall jump, if it's a 35,000-foot tall jump. There's a massive issue with that in the game that needs to be fixed. And like I said, it didn't even used to be that way before JLV put the high-speed, low-speed rebound and compression. It all happened after that. It's like something changed with the suspension of the game, and obviously it's going to change when you add high-speed, low-speed rebound and compression, but it changed in a weird, janky way, like almost to the point of like you were just popping off of the bike over every little double, every little baby jump. If you landed flat at all, you were popping off that mother trucker, and there was nothing you could do about it. But basically what ended up happening was JLV went in there and was like, realized there was a problem, and he added some sort of update to it to where like at a certain height, like 5 foot off the ground, it doesn't do it as much, but he needs to raise that number. It needs to be where it won't do it as much off of a 10-foot tall like area. He needs to make that pop-off system not happen quite as much, not quite as janky. You should only be popping off if you're really like jumping a bigger jump and you're coming up short bad on like a peak of a triple landing. You know, it should only be doing it on that, not just jumping up in the air and landing flat on something, right? It shouldn't totally dismount you off the bike as much as it does currently on MX Simulator, in my opinion, right? I like the way it was before JLV added the high-speed, low-speed compression and rebound as far as the popping off system, right? I like the way that felt beforehand. Seemed a lot more realistic, natural, like a bike would actually be like in real life to me. So yeah, either way, I just wanted to explain that. Like, yes, this track is going to give you a couple little bizarre feelings to it as far as going over the logs and the rocks in certain areas and stuff, just because of the little bit more of the janky nature of crossing over objects and hitting objects, and there not being a small enough rock object on MX Simulator. Like, I almost think you could get more of a rock garden, super small rock feeling by just like making a lot of little spikes in the terrain and then putting a rock decal over it. I think you get more of a rock feeling like that than you can with the small rock objects in the game. If you understand what I'm saying, then you'll get what I'm saying. But, you know, because even the smallest of the small rock statue object in MX Simulator right now is pretty big. I mean, it's no joke. Like, it's more of a, you know, like you'd have to hold it with 2 hands in real life kind of rock. And that's the smallest rock object you can get in MX Simulator right now. So there's a lot of advancements this game can use on the enduro, trail, hare scramble side of it. And I think that's something JLV really needs to look into and really try to improve upon. But what I'm trying to get at is the dude that made this track right here, he did just about the best he could with what he had. And that's what it comes down to. Now, there are a couple places on this track where he really gets it super funnily feeling. Like, not funnily, like, haha, LOL. I mean, like, funnel, like, you know, drink you a beer in a funnel, dog. Like, that kind of feeling where he'll raise up right on the edge of the trail and lower it in the middle and super smooth it, where it's almost like your bike gets stuck. You kind of feel like you're in a water slide, right? That kind of feeling can happen a little bit on a couple areas on this track, which can kind of give you a little bit of a bizarre feeling, but I thought he'd done a really good job on the just overall skill gappy nature of each one of these sections. They don't, you know, they're not like super thread the needle, like Pastrana level difficulty. There are a couple little places that get a little bit more difficult, but for the most part you can get through the track, you know. It's not got those weird where you gotta like super narrow area, complete stop, turn the bike, rotate. It doesn't have so much of that to where it just drives you absolutely nuts, you know. It's rideable, right? That's what I like to try to explain this track by. It's rideable. Now when you get on this kind of shit, it becomes damn near unrideable, but that's understandable because these sections are that way in real life. You just don't want the whole track like that, right? But it's just like this right here, you know. The way each one of these rocks are like spaced apart, it gives it a very weird, every time your wheel gets on a rock, it's like you can't even move because you're just going to slide. And I don't know how, it's just a bizarre, it's not so much a sense of like it's just difficult in a pure way. It's not just like a really difficult thing. It's almost like you're having to battle the jankiness feeling of the objects and having that big of a rock object instead of a lot of little smaller rock objects that you would have in that sort of situation in real life. You know, so it's almost like you're trying to combat and deal with a janky object, a collision feeling more than it just being purely difficult. You understand what I'm saying? That right there, exhibit fucking A, JLV. What the hell is this? I literally barely even came off the ground. Why am I popping off the bike? Holy God. I mean, are you serious? That would not pop somebody off of that bike in 1,000 years. I don't care if your grandma set up your suspension. That would not pop you off the bike in 10 million years. JLV, dude. Do you not understand how you still got a massive issue? I barely even came off the ground. It's like when you're both your wheels, it's almost like a luck guessing game to when you're gonna pop off or not on something. It's almost like a bug, in my opinion. It really is, because it don't matter how high you are off the ground, really. Which that's what it should all depend on, is how much force you're coming down with out of the air on, and how hard you're hitting something, right? Like a momentum to the ground force. That's what should really change on when you're popping off, but that doesn't seem to be what does it. What does it is if both of your wheels seem to hit the ground at the 100% exact same time. That to me seems like that's what does it, right? It's like a bizarre, it's like luck of the draw. Just every once in a while, you're just going to have weird pop-offs, and that's all there is to it. For no apparent reason, you're like, wow, I just popped off. What the hell was that? And you see that a lot in the pro racing. Like, you'll see a lot of those commentators being like, well, there, another dude popped off. And it's just in weird areas. I'm not saying when it's on, like, you come up short on a main triple and pop off. Obviously, that should happen, right? Like, that's completely understandable. There's a lot of, or you over jump a 100-foot tabletop to a flat landing. Yeah, you're probably going to pop off, right? But this is literally, like, I'm not even 5 feet off the ground right here. Not even. And I didn't even go, like, 30 feet distance-wise. You understand what I'm saying? Not even 5 feet off the ground. Didn't even go 20, 30 feet distance, which is nothing. And landed. You're going to think I'm landing on, like, a peak of a jump, or, like, a peak of this mountain over here, but I'm really not. I mean, look at that. Like, I'm really not even landing on a peak at all. That's pretty flat where I'm landing. Like, if you really look at that, that is pretty damn flat. But it's that, like I'm saying, there's a bug in there where if you land with both your wheels at the exact same time, you're going to pop off. JLV needs to fix this, period. Like, if I would have jumped this the exact same way, 100% the same way, but I was a little bit more on the back wheel or a little bit more on the front wheel, it wouldn't have done that, right? It's got a bizarre... something's going on within the physics system to where it calculates that as you smacking hard on a super over jump or a coming up short on a really peaked out jump face or something, when both your your forks and your shock compress like that it's like the suspension of the game is taking that like you're hitting something hard and with a lot of force and coming down with a lot of a lot of momentum to hit the ground, but in reality, sometimes you're not. You see what I'm saying? Sometimes you're actually not. A lot of times you're not. Oh, JLV, dog. Man, that is bizarre, that whole... I really think JLV needs to come in here and add a... You know how, like, there's basically two different ways to wreck on MX Simulator, right? You've got the way where... you can basically like slide in a corner, but you don't pop off the bike. You don't fully dismount and you can pick it up pretty quick. And then you got the system where if you come up short on a triple or you over jump a 500-foot jump, you pop off and your dude kind of like lays down on the ground for a few seconds. Well, there needs to be some sort of medium gray area on that where you can like slide over or like kind of lay it over, but it doesn't totally pop you off when you're going super, super slow, because that doesn't even make any sense. Like, you can literally be barely even moving and just backing up, but if your elbow hits anything, I'm talking the terrain, anything, if that elbow hits it, it's like you over jumped a 300-foot jump and you're going to pop off. That just doesn't seem right to me. There needs to be some TLC put into that when you're going slow in the game. That's what I'm getting at. Like, MX Simulator is one of those games, everything works a lot better when you're actually going faster, but when you're having to slow down on these enduro trail, super slow, totally snail's pace type riding, then you really start to see some of the negative effects of the physics system sprout their little head, you know what I'm saying? It really starts to kind of expose that when you start going really slow, because typically you would never go this slow on a normal motocross or supercross track in the game, so you hardly ever even really notice this shit unless you're like going on a trail track or something like this. But so it's just unfortunate that it's like that. But the whole pop-off system of the game, I would say, if I could just calculate it up in my mind, I would say it's about 10% too much popping off the bike. It's not way far off, right? It's just some of the moments are literally like you think in your head that I would have not popped off that bike. There is no way that would have happened in real life. There is no way I would have popped off of that 5-foot tall jump. It's literally impossible. It would not have happened. There is no way. And it'll happen in this game from time to time. So that's what I'm saying. Like a 10%, he needs to tone back the popping off the bike about 10% in the game, in my opinion. Now that right there, that's pretty legit. I just fucking, went down this weird little hole that I didn't even realize was there. And I think I might have, did I hit that second rock object? No, I don't think so. Just kind of rolled over. I mean, that was legit. That was like a legit wreck that would happen on Enduro, but a lot of these little wrecks I had here are not really the case. They're a little more bizarre. But either way, man. Now, with the traction on this track, it can be a little bit weird feeling, especially when you get like right on a hill and you're trying to gas it. It literally almost feels like you can't move without the front wheel flipping over, which I understand that will happen on super, angled out hillsides and stuff, but I don't know, the traction might be just ever so slightly too much traction in certain areas, in my opinion, because you almost can't even just like slow gas it at the top of a hill without your front wheel flipping over, and that can be kind of annoying in some areas. But overall, the decal work and all that, really, really awesome on this, man. The off-track skybox, super cool. Really like how you put all that together. You've done a lot of work on that side of it, finding a skybox like that. Let me see if I can show this. I mean, check this out, dude. Let me get up over this hill. But by the way, I have my graphics turned down and try to make everything look a little better on YouTube. But if you get in there and have your graphics cranked up, all this on-track decal, off-track decal look way more realistic. So you guys will enjoy that. It looks really solid. It's like more modern-day decals in the game and not like Play-Doh looking decals, but check out, like when you're just riding on this part of the track and you look off in the distance, to be completely honest with you, it doesn't even look like a skybox. It looks like that's actually built up mountains, but it's not, dude. It's just a skybox. So he really has been able to make that full-blown melded together skybox that like kind of tricking your eyes, tricking your mind into thinking that it's real terrain and trees out there, but it's actually not at all. So, and absolute fantastic job on just being able to make the entire track this long and making the full map and making it work without completely slaying your PC, completely lagging out your PC. Obviously, you're going to notice a little bit of a stutter. Obviously, like it's going to have that, but it's still rideable. I mean, you can still run it on this track. So fantastic job on making it all work like that. Like I said, this track is going to go down in history. Very, very cool. Probably the most accurate, like really long enduro ERZBERG replication type track. Probably the best that's ever been made in the game. I mean, best that I've ever seen. There could be one in there that I haven't really seen yet, but this is the best I've ever seen on it. Now this track will... there's not a whole lot of where the trees are really close to the track. I don't think there's a single tree on this track that's actually collidable, so it is missing a little bit of some trail-y elements like that, and a lot of the trail areas can feel somewhat one-dimensional. Like you can feel like a lot of the trail sections, especially in the trees that aren't on the rocks and the logs and stuff, feel very, very similar to the way the trail looks in the deserty area, like the more tan dirt area. They almost feel like the trail is made the exact same way throughout the entire track, which can give it a little bit of a bizarre experience, because if any guys know in real life, like the track will get really, really narrow in areas, and it'll really widen up, and then it'll like get super narrow through the trees, and the trees will be really, really close to the track. You'll be bouncing off the trees with your handlebars, and you'll have like little barriers on the track where it literally gets like the width of one bike narrow on it. So this track is slightly missing out on some of those elements, but in all reality, it just hit my controller on my desk, my bad. In all reality, it's still a great track. It's still a fantastic job overall in that sense. I mean, he's having to manage so much here by making this long of a track and making it all work without, like I said, without completely killing your computer. So that's why you're not seeing a crazy amount of off-track. I mean, there's really only like one kind of tree on the entire track, one off-track grass decal on the woodlandy area. So yeah, it can get that kind of more simplistic, repetitive-y type feeling, but it's understandable when you're trying to make a track that is this long. I mean, it's just it is what it is, But yeah, like in real life, a lot of times when you see rocks, a lot of times it's no big deal to ride over them or bounce off of them or go over them. But in this case, with MX Simulator, a lot of times you just try to avoid them because you're trying to avoid that weird object collision of MX Simulator. So a lot of times it's literally just a game of snaking your way around the rocks and never even trying to touch a rock with your wheel. With your tire, you're never trying to do that. You're always trying to just avoid it. So you kind of play this game of snaking through the rocks in a lot of areas where in real life I feel like you would just gas through it, right? So it can feel a little bit bizarre in that sense. But overall, not bad, man. A couple areas get a little more difficult. I mean, a couple areas you really got to get the momentum from the bottom of the hill to the top of the hill because you're not going to be able to gas it once you get midways up through it with the way the traction is on this track. It's weird. It's like it doesn't have grip, and then all of a sudden it'll have grip in weird places. I don't really know how he made it quite like that, but it can be a slightly bizarre, but I guess it is kind of more of like a dry, slick area in a lot of the places, so maybe that traction would make sense being kind of weird like that. How dry traction, sometimes it can be like it's got literally no traction, super slick, and then sometimes it's got all the traction in the world, very like Blue Groove dry type tracks like that, hard packed tracks like that can feel like that at times. So, but either way, dude, long ass track, it'll wear you out riding on it. It will give you that enduro, literally riding on a hare scramble race in real life kind of experience. You're like, oh my God, is this lap ever going to end? Is this track ever going to end? Like I'm just keep going, can't give up, got to finish. It's got that really cool effect and feeling that it gives to you having this long of a track like this long of a lap time. So cool how he captured that. So overall, I'm going to give this track I'm just going to give it a 10 overall. I mean, I know there's so many different little elements that could have been done better, but you got to look at it at a bigger scale and scope, You got to look at it a little bit bigger. Like if there was better objects in the game, better object collision in the game, it would have made this track 10,000 times better, and that's not even really the guy's fault. You get what I'm saying? That's just the kind of the fault of the game at this current point, not being really supporting the enduro hare scramble type side of it. So it's not the guy's fault. It's more just a lack of small rock objects, better object collision, certain things like that. But yeah, dude, overall 10 for sure. I would say difficulty, you're probably looking at hard. I wouldn't say Pastrana or anything like that. It's not like a super weird, like, hardest supercross track ever, or like, how some of those tracks get like fantasy difficult on MX Sim. It's not to that extent. Definitely still a rideable track, rideable trail track. So he's captured that sort of skill gap range pretty well here. Couple of areas like this, I didn't really know where I was going. Yeah, so it's going to take you a long time to learn some of these sections. This being this long of a lap time, so you might get a little bit frustrated in some areas because you'll be like, "Oh, I popped off of that double that I thought was just a downhill roll jump or whatever." That'll happen to you in quite a few different little areas, but yeah, dude, overall sick track. By the way, guys, went to the real life motocross track again in real life. Got there, it's pissing rain, and then it started shitting rain. So, yeah, that was rough on me. But I'm going again here in just another day, so we'll get it riding. We'll get those vids going. Just got to keep going to the track, man, in real life, and that's what I got to do. By the way, I apologize for if I'm like keeping my gears in a certain gear in this video. Yeah, I can't shift worth a shift anymore because my controller's completely worn out. So, yeah, I apologize for that. That was making this a little bit of a weird experience because I was trying to, especially on a trail track, it's hard when you're trying to shift and it won't shift. That can be a little bit bizarre. So, yeah, if you see me coming over a hill in fifth gear and like, why the hell am I still in fifth gear? That's why, because it literally won't shift down. So I'm going to have to go to a new controller really soon. Wore this puppy out. Definitely happens when you play MX Sim every day. So, but yeah, overall fun track, dog. Really long lap time. Wearing myself out going through this long of a lap. Just watching it wears me out, dog. Imagine riding on it. Imagine racing on it. Now, I will say this. There's a lot of areas that, you're going to have people that are going to be able to cut parts of the track, and you're going to be able to kind of ride on the edge of the track. This right here, probably one of the hardest parts of the track, like insane section right here, because he put so many of those big boulders that you literally cannot get over in the game. So kind of made it really tricky down through here. But there's a lot of areas where it's like you'll gas it and you'll just kind of barely go off the track, but you'll totally be skipping all the logs and the rocks, but it's not even really that you're cutting the track. He doesn't have a whole lot of like track barrier, track banner. There's really not a whole lot of that. It really is a free base, free kind of go wherever you want to, almost free riding type enduro cross, enduro track, trail, hare scramble type, track that you got going on here. Like for instance, right here, I mean, would you technically say I'm cutting the track here, or would you not? I don't know. Like I can go down through here and completely cut all that bullshit in the middle. Like, no one in their right mind would ever go down through there in the middle of that. But, like, he didn't get his mountains close enough on the edge to where it's just totally blocking you on the edge, right? You can just almost, like, totally skip all this. And that you can do this with just about every section in this track right here. That's what I'm trying to say. You can kind of, like, skip and find little tricky, janky, exploitation type ways that you can go around these areas. And a lot of times you can totally skip areas like this. So yeah, a little bizarre like that, but a couple of things like that on the track. But overall, let me do another endo for endometriosis there, dude. Getting real close to the finish here. So I think if you like basically never actually popped off, never fell down, you could probably do like a 30-minute lap time or a 25-minute lap time or something. That's if you're really cooking. If you're more of an amateur rider, you're probably going to get like a 40-minute, 45-minute lap time on this if you're actually riding where you're supposed to on the track and not cutting all of it. I know I cut a couple areas. It just kind of happens on a track like this. Kind of hard to avoid it, like I was saying before. Oh, God. Gotta love it, dog. You got to be real patient on trail riding, especially when it's your first lap on the track. Then I get right here and can't gas it up the hill. Oh, boy. There's a lot of times where you'll get halfway uphill, you got to go back down. It's not even that the hills are really all that peaked out. Like what I'm saying, it's more of the traction that he chose. It's not so much the peakness of stuff. Like if he had the traction a little more like generic and not so bizarre, it wouldn't give you that experience that much. Where you had to go back down a hill 1,000 times. But I don't know. It's just got that traction where it's almost like it doesn't have traction when you need it, and then it has too much traction when you don't need it. Kind of weird, kind of hard to explain that. But either way, it's still rideable. It's not terrible. Just can give you a little bit of a bizarre type experience there. But dudes, just trying to flow this video out till the end here. But yeah, it looks sick when you start looking at it like this in some of the areas, and the off-track skybox just pulls that all together really, really well right here. Lots of areas you're going to have to totally slow down like that. It's got a lot of the parts on this track do have a very basic, simplistic, everyday MX Simulator trail track feeling, but a lot of the areas do feel more real and cool. So, but I think a lot of it's kind of just filler, parts of the track like this right here through here. It's not super unique. It's just trying to kind of fill you out, make the overall lap time longer and stuff like that. Oh, what the fucking crazy downhill, baby. Yeah, let me roll on down to Texas here. Fucking insane, dude. But yeah, it was cool riding on another enduro trail track like this. I'm starving in real life right now, so sorry if it sounds like I'm getting hangry, about to fall asleep. Whoa, Spence, going the wrong way, bud. Get going the right way. Spin that puppy around. There you go. Got a couple of off-track grass billboards in certain areas, but not in other areas. Check out that hook, baby. Hook of the century. So yeah. And then come down through here. So it's kind of a combination of the standard woodland, and then you go back to the desert vibe, more dry like this. So this is probably one of the coolest areas of the whole track. This is what I expected to be on more areas of the track, right? But there's really only like 5 or 6 different areas that actually feel super real like this. All the other areas kind of feel more simple, more basic. But he does actually have log and rock objects under that water, and it gets tricky because you can't see it when you're when you're on top of the water. You can only sit when your head goes under the water. So that's a little confusing, but other than that, not too bad, bro. So yeah, oh yeah, there's like a whole nother mountain section up here. There's really not too much more to the track. To be completely honest with you, there's really just like one more up the deserty mountain type section up there, and that's about it. And then it sweeps back around to the start straight. So yeah, I'm just going to cut it off here. I don't want to have the crazy long video, but I'm almost to the finish. I mean, literally it's like one more corner, and then you go up this little desert. Hell, I don't know. I'll just let it finish. We're already almost to the finish line. Might as well ride it out. You know what I'm saying? It's going to be a pretty long video. It gets really tricky when you start trying to upload longer videos because it literally will take like a video 5, 6, 7 hours to upload. And on top of all that, it just takes forever for the actual quality of the video to load in. Makes everything difficult. Makes editing everything take 10 times long when you make a video that's like, 40, 50 minutes long. And most people don't even want to watch a video for that long. That's the truth of it. Like, most people are not even really trying to watch a video that long. So I think with YouTube, the key range there is like 10-minute to 20-minute long video. It's pretty solid. But it's okay if a video goes to like 30, but you want to be real careful when you start breaking into that 40, 50, 1 hour long videos, 40, 50 minute to 1 hour long videos. Just slither on over right there, boy. Kiss my elbow on the rut, and down I went. So, yeah, dude. So, either way, we're almost to the finish. But you can just see how, like, riding on this will literally wear you out like a real-life enduro. It's so cool when you can get those, like, real-life connections to a game like MX Sim. Very, very cool when you can get those experiences like that. But, imagine how long it would have took to make this track, dude. God dang. Even it being really simple in a lot of areas, just to put this long of a track together, I mean, whoo, this was like a month after month after month project. I can guarantee you, this wasn't something somebody just slapped up in a week. Like, a lot of work went into this puppy. Could you imagine just placing all the billboard trees? Not even talking about the terrain and making everything look halfway decent off the track. All the fucking rock objects and log objects. Woo, dog. That's why this track deserves a 10, you know what I'm saying? The amount of work put in, it being decent everywhere, and giving you a lot of those real-life enduro feelings and experiences. That's why this track deserves a 10 overall, in my opinion. It goes to this little mud section. It's about the only part of the track that really has a lot of mud like that. A couple other areas, real small mud water sections, but that's the only part that's like full-blown mud section. So it was cool that he integrated at least a little bit of that in there. Gave you a little bit of a different feel, but yeah, you'll have a lot of these moments where you'll be kind of wrecking, you'll be going up a hill, and you'll kind of slightly slide off the track, but you'll still gas it anyways. You don't want to go back down the hill, but it doesn't really keep you on that exact trail 100% a lot of times, so that will happen here and there. But yeah, this is the last little stretch down to the straightaway. Stoppies, boys. Couple of areas you can like double through like that. Want to be careful doubling into those rocks like that, like I'm saying, because it will flip you over like it's a damn boulder and not just a little rock garden. Even the smaller rocks, you got to be careful. They've got just enough of a peak on them to where it will flip you over in the game, so got to be careful. But either way, we're back to the start straight, boys. Hell yeah. We made it. Dudeskies, we made it. So either way, appreciate you guys watching all the videos. Later.